When the Bay's newest recruit, Sergeant David Langham, turned up at Yabby Creek Police Station a few weeks ago, he had no idea that his estranged daughter Lacey had recently moved to the area. Spotting the name Lacey Miller in the file for the recently closed River Boy case, he asked a confused Cash to bring her in for further questioning. When Lacey arrived, with no idea why the police wanted to speak to her again, she was shocked to come face to face with her dad. It transpired that Lacey had left the family home some 6 months earlier, and had begun using her mom's maiden name to honor her memory. Lacey had left after the death of her mother, leaving behind dad David and sister Jo. Lacey's mom died in a car accident. The passenger in a car Jo was driving, and Lacey blames Jo for her death. What's more, she believes that David used his powers to cover up the accident, meaning Jo didn't face any consequences. However, to David and Jo, the crash of which Jo doesn't remember the cause was just a tragic accident. Since David and Jo arrived in the Bay, Lacey has kept them at arm's length, and has refused to engage with them. When Jo tried to talk to Lacey at the surf club, their discussion ended up spilling out into the parkland, where Lacey punched her sister after she refused to back down. Next week, the drama continues for the Langham family, as David prepares to give Lacey some news which he knows is likely to upset her. His first attempt fails, as Lacey makes it clear to him that she's got every intention of pretending that he doesn't exist. He corners Theo as he heads up the beach from a surf lesson, and warns him that he's readying himself to deliver Lacey some tough news, and asks if he can be around to look out for her in the aftermath. As Lacey watches on from a distance, she feels betrayed by Theo, who appears to be getting on well with her estranged father. When she confronts Theo at Salt, he defends himself as he tries to explain what really happened, but as their conversation heats up, David arrives. Lacey immediately spots what he's brought with him, her suitcase. As she asks him what he's doing with it, he finally breaks the news to her he's sold their family home. He's collected some of the things he thought she'd like to keep, and he's here to give it to her. Later that evening, a shell-shocked Lacey sits with Theo at the diner apartment, readying herself to go through her childhood keepsakes. The first thing Lacey is confronted with is a photo of her family in happier times. "I just miss her so much," she tells Theo as she fights back the tears. The exercise ends up being quite cathartic, and even works to bring Theo and Lacey closer as he discovers some surprising facts from her childhood. She used to sleep with a teddy every night, was on the netball team, and was the student council president. She and Jo were also obsessed with ballet when they were kids, a far cry from the car enthusiast girlfriend of a river boy he met just a few months ago. As Lacey takes a trip down memory lane, Theo points out that her dad clearly kept the items for so long because they meant something to him too. His words have the desired effect on Lacey, and she sends her dad a text the following morning, asking to meet. When the two meet up by the beach, David apologizes for how he handled the sale of the house. Lacey can't understand how he could sell the one place which held so many memories of her mom. But David explains that they couldn't stay there any longer, it was simply too painful. That's why he moved to Summer Bay, for a fresh start. Lacey finally begins to thaw as David assures her that their mom's memory will always live on in their hearts. As they relive old memories, Lacey even manages to raise a smile. However, when Lacey happily tells David that she found her ballet shoes in the bottom of the suitcase, David responds by bringing up the memory of how they took her to the dance shop to choose them. Lacey interrupts that wasn't her. That was Jo. Upset that her dad has mistaken her for the sister she wants nothing to do with. Any chance of the pair repairing their bond is instantly shattered. As Lacey storms off, is there anything David can do to fix the relationship with his daughter? Elsewhere, Jo has plenty of drama of her own next week, as she tries to get closer to new love interest Tane. The pair got off to a frosty start when Tane tried to help her with her car troubles when he found her broken down at the side of the road. Jo refused his offer of help, and was later stunned to find Tane taking it upon himself to replace her fan belt without her permission. However, once she began to settle into the Bay, She soon realized that Tane wasn't all that bad, and a crush quickly developed. After some words of encouragement from Dad David, who'd pointed out that she could do with some friends her own age, she decided to ask Tane out on a date. Things were looking good for the pair as they met up at Salt last week, that is. Until Harper turned up, in need of a babysitter and angry that Tane had been ignoring her calls. Their date came to a swift end as Joe realized that Tane had a baby, and Tane was forced to head home to look after Archie. Next week, Harper returns from her work trip, and when she catches up with Tane in the garden of the Parada house, she apologizes for how she acted last week. She simply wasn't prepared to see her former fiancé moving on with someone else. Meanwhile, Joe is waiting at Manta Ray boards, hoping to find Lacey, but instead bumps into Dana. The pair also got off to a rocky start, but when an emotional Joe begins to open up about the sale of her family home, Dana invites her for a drink upstairs. As they chat, Dana can't help but ask whether the new arrival has met anyone special yet. Joe's face gives away that she has, but Dana has no idea that Joe is the girl whose date her sister disrupted last week. As the drinks continue to flow, Joe decides to reveal that her new love interest has a child and a gate-crashing ex. And it's not hard for Dana to put the pieces together. When Dana asks for the guy's name, looking to confirm that it's Tane, Joe refuses to reveal the details. It doesn't matter. It's not going anywhere anyway. Despite this, once Dana has left, Joe drunkenly sends Tane a text asking him if he's uncomplicated his life yet. With Dana having figured out who Joe's mystery man is, it's the first thing she mentions when she meets up with Harper the following morning. She's quick to remind Harper that she doesn't want to be seen as the crazy witch lady. She can't stop Tane from dating. While she may be hurting, Tane still deserves to be happy. You all do. Taking her sister's advice on board, Harper then has a proper chat with Tane about him dating other people, and tells him that as long as he's there for Archie, he can date whoever he wants. Harper then seeks out Joe at the diner, and clears the air with her too. She fills Joe in on some of her and Tane's history, including the fact that they called off their wedding on the day of the ceremony, before telling her that Tane is a great guy and clarifying that he is indeed single. She tells Joe not to let her get in the way, and to just go for it. Soon after, Tane finds Joe at Salt, and, having been given Harper's blessing, he asks her out on another date. Yet, much to his surprise, Joe turns him down. It's all too complicated, and she doesn't need that right now. Will Tane be able to convince Joe that he's worth a second chance? Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more movie spoilers next week. Goodbye and see you again.